Hello everybody, my name is Amber Schreiber and this is my presentation on why LEED certifications implemented into dorms at universities would be a great idea. Alright, so the first thing I'd like to talk about is the environmental problem that we are facing and why we would need to implement LEED certifications to our buildings. In the next slide, I'll explain what LEED actually is, but for right now, I want to explain why we would do it. And the main problem that we are facing as to why we would do that is the overuse of our natural resources. We have a huge problem as humans of wasting the resources that we are given, and this is due to energy consumption, water consumption, overuse of those two in buildings and like living spaces in particular. And colleges actually partake in this especially because the amount of people that are housed in one dorm is astronomical in comparison to a normal living space. I actually have a statistic on the slide right there that explains that. But yeah, that's just the main problem, and LEED certifications will help to reduce that amount of consumption, especially in dorms. Okay, so now let's talk about what LEED actually is. It's an acronym that stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, and basically it just provides this framework to create more efficient buildings and more eco-friendly buildings. It's basically working on a point system using a checklist for each different area of design and construction that your building would have, and how eco-friendly each component is. And the more eco-friendly and cost-efficient your building is, then the higher certification will be awarded because you have more points based on that point system. You can range from certified all the way to platinum on certifications, and basically there's a multitude of benefits that come with having these certifications that will be discussed in another slide. Alright, so now in regards to actually implementing this, there's quite a bit of procedures that we have to go through first, and the first one is the 3 minimum program requirements have to be met, and those are construction on a permanent location on existing land, inclusion of all land associated with the project, and various size requirements based on the type of building. After the dorm has met these MPRs, an application can be submitted, and there's different types of applications, again, based on the project type. Those different applications lead to different checklists that the U.S. Green Building Council would use to review the dorm. A couple different examples would be a V4 checklist or a 2009 checklist. I have a picture of one of the types of checklists, and they're all pretty similar. They all have different categories in which you gain points for how environmentally friendly the dorm is. Again, it's all dependent on the project type, but these are the basic steps of how it would go. Okay, so now the question of cost arises, and there's going to be initial registration and certification fees dependent on the size of the building, whether or not building owners are USGBC members, and the project type referring back to the type of LEED checklist that is assigned. And basically there's a ton of numbers, but for the purpose of this proposal, dorms would fall into the category of building design and construction and non-US Green Building Council members. Again, there's going to be a ton of numbers that are spit out based on the type of building, but it can range anywhere from $2,000 to $22,000. So I'm going to highball it for this proposal and say it's going to be $22,000. That's inclusive of additional fees for repeals and extra research and anything of that sort. But it's also going to cost money to actually implement the devices and designs into buildings and into dorms. That's actually going to give you more points on our LEED checklist. So, anything from solar powered devices to heating, cooling systems, anything of that nature. So I'm going to add a $10,000 buffer to that number to ensure that we would have enough, and for anything the university would want to implement. So a rough estimate of $32,000 would be for this specific project, but again, it's just an estimate because fees vary from size and project type, the amount of eco-friendly material that's implemented. So the next question that comes into play is how long would this take to get a certification? And now there are 3 stages of review that you must go through before you get a certification, and each of those are going to take 20 to 25 business days. The first stage is going to be the preliminary, the second stage is going to be the final, and the third stage is going to be the supplemental, and in the supplemental stage is where you can re-review anything or challenge anything that the board has to say. It also depends on how ready the university is in terms of have they implemented all the devices they want to, are they ready to be reviewed, and that sort of thing. It also depends on what the USGBC says is a business day when they're in order and in operating hours. But a rough estimate of how long this would take can be anywhere from 3 to 6 months, maybe longer depending on the project type and size. Anything of that sort, it really depends on the specific project. But 3 to 6 months is a good indicator and starting point. So now that those questions of cost and timeline have been answered, we can begin to look at them as barriers and obstacles to implementing LEED. As far as cost goes, $32,000 is a lot of money, so it may especially scare some individuals, especially university heads, that don't want to put out that much money if there's not a guarantee up front that this will be successful. But when you take a look at the amount of revenue that comes into universities from, say students paying tuition, Kansas Wesleyan University has $40,000 as one room and board and tuition for one student, so the cost of $32,000 is only a fraction of that. Plus, not to mention the amount of money that will be saved due to implementing these technologies that are energy and cost efficient, the amount of money that's saved over time will begin to accumulate and even surpass that primary fee. So that initial cost and number becomes less shocking. All it would take is some rebudgeting at the time by university heads. When we talk about timelines, some universities don't really have the patience or the resources to sustain that amount of time that it'll take to obtain a certification. But despite that, 6 months, again, is not a long time. I know it depends on the project type, but that is combated with the fact that the end result will be beneficial despite that, like those 6 months. It's just that a lot of universities don't really have the patience for that. Alright, so now let's discuss the benefits and how these benefits are going to outweigh the barriers that were previously discussed. So the most obvious first one is the impact that it'll have on the environment and how the implementation of energy and water-saving technologies are going to help the environment and lessen resource consumption. Things such as advanced heating and cooling systems, light systems, water systems, anything of that sort is going to really benefit the environment and help to reduce the carbon footprint that humans are leaving on this earth. And one example of a university that has actually experimented with this and succeeded is the University of South Carolina, and they have earned silver LEED status for having more open areas, indoor plants, and built-in efficiencies such as those stated previously. But that's just an example of how LEED certifications have positively impacted the environment as well as universities. Alright, so the next benefit that will come about from LEED certifications is going to be the economical side of it. Basically, all of these devices are just going to make the buildings more cost efficient because of the reduced energy and water usage. Overall, it's just a decreased amount of maintenance, and there's actually a statistic here from Jersey Construction Group that says that the annual utilities cost in green facilities was $675.26 lower than in non-green facilities per year. So, and imagine an accumulation of that over a multitude of years. This just shows that the savings per year is well worth it. Again, it depends on the type of building, as does most of these things, but that's just a little glimpse of how much money this would save due to the decreased amount of maintenance. Now, the third major benefit that's going to come from LEED certifications is going to be the health aspect. The most obvious one is going to be from physical health benefits. The implemented technologies are going to work to improve the air quality or pollution, anything like that is really going to improve the quality of life for students in the dorms. Not to mention, you also have the mental health aspect. It just makes people feel good knowing that they're helping the environment while also gaining those certifications. It's really just a benefit to the mental health as well as the physical health. Alright, with all of that being said, it can be decided that these benefits of environmental, economical, and health aspects most definitely outweigh the barriers of cost and time. Not to mention, it also helps to significantly reduce the resource consumption by humans, lessening the carbon footprint on Earth, which was the original environmental problem that we were trying to solve in the first place. Everything being said, LEED certification should be implemented to dorms, not only because of the numerous benefits that are provided to humans, but also because it helps to solve the original problem that we were looking at of resource consumption. Thank you, everybody, for listening.